Hey guys, some of you noticed my absence yesterday. Well, I was just exhausted, too tired, couldn't even think about true crime at all. No. So caught up with my good old friend Netflix. Anyway, I'm back this morning. So Delphi case, we are now about 14 and a half hours into the deliberations, the state of Indiana versus Richard M. Allen. They started deliberating on Thursday afternoon. No deliberations on Sundays, so they are back today at 9 AM Eastern. Just let today be the day. I'm so over this now. I just need an answer. I can't imagine how Abby and Libby's families are feeling, how Richard Allen and his family are feeling. We all just need an answer now. But what's the problem is what we're going to talk about in this video. Is there a problem?
It's time for you guys to start being journalists.
Before an angry Andrew Baldwin left the courthouse, 13 News overheard him speaking to Richard Allen's wife, saying, "It ain't over. The world's watching. The world sees what's going on."
I'm going to do a little story time with Michelle. Beginning of 2020, just before the whole country went into lockdown, I was on a jury. Murder. 2 defendants, 1 victim. 1 victim called Barry. 2 defendants, a father and son called John and Danny. Looking after a whinger today. Looking after a real whinger. Callie. Come here. Father and son beat and kicked Barry to death. Pled not guilty. Went to trial. When we started deliberating after 3 weeks, I mean, the trial lasted 3 weeks, but honestly, we had a day off when there was no water in the building. They started late some days because of, motions hearings and stuff like that. So I think probably it was more like 2.5 weeks, like for us, the actual evidence presenting and stuff. But anyway, got into the deliberation room, and we, like the jury in this case, we were allowed to discuss the case. Callie, as long as we were in the jury room, like our room, and we were all present, we were allowed to discuss. Not deliberate, but we were allowed to discuss. So I don't know what the difference is between discussing and deliberating. But we did talk about the evidence. It was more like, oh, I hope the defendants give evidence, or I hope we hear from a person who can clear such a thing up. It was more like that, rather than dissecting the evidence. It was so interesting, but very similar to what we have here. And I'm not sure it's a good thing that you allow the jury to do that. I'm undecided. I'm not sure it's productive, but I don't know. I'm open-minded about it. Let me know what you think. Is it a good thing to let the jury talk about the case, like mid-trial? We only took an hour and a half to reach a guilty verdict. An hour and a half, 2.5 weeks of evidence, and an hour and a half. Because a lot of the witnesses basically said the same thing. A lot of the witnesses saw how this thing started, but nobody saw how it ended. And the CCTV camera that was closest was council owned or something, and it tilted. So it was looking directly on how this thing started, but it tilted by the time this thing ended. But there was a CCTV camera right down the road that caught it, but it was tiny. It was tiny, like in the top left of the screen. So when they played it on the big screens in court, I knew something was happening, but I couldn't see. I couldn't see. Anyway, when we got in the deliberation room, they gave us a laptop, like with just all the CCTV loaded onto it. So no access to the internet, it was all air-gapped. It was just like a bald laptop, just with this CCTV evidence in, and it gave us the ability to look through it as much as we can. And we know in this case on Saturday, the jury requested watching, we don't know which interviews, either the 13th of October or the 26th of October. So it was either Steve Mullen and Liggett or Holman. And then the Bridge Guy video. So we don't know whether it was the original Bridge Guy, the enhanced Bridge Guy, or both. So we don't know. But they were in the courtroom for like 4 hours. Like Richard Allen and his attorneys were there for like 4 hours. So that's to be expected. I mean, I'm surprised that they haven't given them a laptop and let them watch the interviews and stuff as much as they want. Maybe there's rules, maybe the defendant has to be present if it's an interview with him, I guess. I don't know. I mean, in my case, it was just CCTV. There was no, like, interviews with the defendants or anything. That we weren't shown any of that. And I would have liked to have seen what they said initially, but we weren't shown any of that. But the defendants did give evidence. They didn't help themselves at all. There was two things that made my decision. Like, by the time we got to closing arguments, I'd already made my mind up that these guys did it for two reasons. One, the injuries, like the autopsy report, the photos of his bruising, it was all fresh bruising, and there was way more bruising than would have been evident if Barry died in the way that John and Danny said he died. Like they said, oh, well, we were arguing. Like John said, oh, we were arguing. However, Barry just fell. He fell backwards and hit his head on the curb or something. So, yeah, he could have hit his head when he fell. But where did all the 60-odd bruises come from? So that was the thing for me. And then what I wanted to see in the deliberation room, I didn't want to talk, I just wanted to see. So I controlled the laptop and I showed people the place where I wanted to focus on and zoomed right in, and it was very pixelated, but you could see John and Danny coming down the road, and you could see, like, you could pick John and Danny out by what they were wearing, like as they were coming down the road, and then you could follow them, and then it became very pixelated, but you could see the movements of them kicking him while he was on the ground. So it's like, nah, sorry guys. But there was one person who came into the deliberations thinking manslaughter, which was one of our lesser charges that we could have given them. And another one said, they're not guilty. It was an accident. They're not guilty. And she wouldn't budge. The woman who said manslaughter at first, once she saw the CCTV, she was like, yeah. So we were 11-1. And that's what took the time. Like, we all kind of come to the same conclusion. And she was like, no, it was an accident. And we were like, look. We were like trying to like show her the evidence. Like, look at the autopsy. How did they get this bruise and this bruise and this bruise if he just fell? She eventually said, all right, you know, we could be here for another day, we could be here for another 2 days. I'm not going to change my mind. However, she capitulated. Is that the word? So in this case, what's the hold up? Now, let me give a bit of a terminology. Hung jury. These guys, in my opinion, I think are well hung. Pardon the pun. I think there is a disagreement. I think there is somebody or some bodies holding out, either guilty or not guilty. There may be a faction who believe he's very firmly not guilty, a faction very firmly guilty. Callie, what's up? She's a whinger. I'll show members a picture of her after. I'll put it on and I'll get you to guess her breed. Yeah, where was it? Yeah, so I do believe there's an element of hanging here. So when we say hung jury, we mean that the jury are deadlocked. So deliberation is just the discussion, the argument, the they're looking at the evidence, they're discussing the evidence. That's deliberation. Being hung is when there's deadlock. So if you watch the Karen Reid trial, the jury came back after, I don't know how many hours it was. It seemed to be forever. They came back and they said they were deadlocked, and she told them to go back and deliberate again, gave them an instruction. And then the second time they came back, she gave them the Tui Rodriguez instruction, which is a thing in Massachusetts. So it's basically just a written instruction. And then the third time they came back and said they were deadlocked, then she declared a mistrial. What we don't know in this case, which is really frustrating, oh, the neighbour's dog's barking now. What we don't know in this case is whether they have already been back, because there's no cameras, there's no public in the court, they're not calling people in when the jury, we know that the jury have had questions because they've requested to see the footage, but the court hasn't been open. So we don't know how many questions they've asked, which you might get a gauge on, you know, where they're going. We don't know whether they've already come back and said we're deadlocked. We don't know any of that. So we're just waiting for a verdict. So it's 9 till 4 today. Callie! It's 9 till 4 today. So if they go to the end of today, I know some people are saying it's 1 hour of deliberations per day of trial. I don't know that works, honestly. O.J. Simpson, they came back in only 4 hours. Not guilty. I think a quick verdict is a guilty one, usually, but not always. Not always. I don't think we can call this one. Because if they're hung... Callie! Enough! If they're hung... Callie! What's up? What's up? What's up? It's because I'm talking. She thinks there's stuff going on. She thinks she should... What's up? What's up? She's getting agitated. It's because I'm talking. She's like, attention, attention, attention. As I keep saying, I'll go live as soon as I hear that there's a verdict in. So hopefully I will be back later. But if not, then add another 7 hours on, and we're looking at like 21 and a half hours if they go the whole of today. It's exhausting, absolutely exhausting. But I'll let you go, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.